My name is Sonali Menezes. I am an artist and writer from Hamilton, Ontario. During the Open Studio residency, I have been working on a manuscript for a book called Depression Cooking: Feeding Myself Under the Crushing Weight of Capitalism. It is a manuscript adaptation of a zine that I launched in 2022 that had some popularity, and so I am trying my hand at turning it into a book. So I've spent my residency writing. Okay, so describing my artistic practice, I would call myself potentially a multidisciplinary artist. So sometimes I do screen printing, predominantly silkscreen printing. Sometimes I write zines. Sometimes I illustrate. Sometimes I do videos. Sometimes I do sculpture. And sometimes I do photography. And sometimes I do performance. So it really depends on my mood and what I decide to make at the time and the medium. What motivates me to make art is really just yearning for a sense of belonging in this world and a sense of purpose. So I tend to feel quite lost, and my artistic practice grounds me in an ability to communicate with other people in the world. So the thing that drew me first and foremost to the Open Studio residency program is that it's a paid residency. There are a lot of unpaid residencies out there, and you're supposed to be grateful for the opportunity and be very happy, but then how do you go about paying your rent while you're doing the residency? I have a couple of friends who have done this residency before and spoke very highly of it. So there was a personal connection to Sackville, and I have not been out on the East Coast before. So I thought it would be a really nice opportunity to come out east and to be in nature, quite honestly, coming from a big city. So the public programming that I facilitated during my residency is a mac and cheese potluck party. So it was a 2-hour drop-in potluck lunch. We made 3 pots of mac and cheese, and then we provided a few toppings that included veggie meat, ground veggie meat, frozen peas, additional shredded cheese, and kimchi. And then we invited members of the community to come to the potluck with their own topping. And everyone was invited to try a bowl of mac and cheese and then create a combination of toppings as their heart desires on the mac and cheese. And then we talked about some of the things that we enjoyed. So the residency has impacted the writing quite substantially. First and foremost, I have never had this amount of time just to write before for my artistic practice. I typically write smaller, shorter zines. I've never written something on this scale before. So it's quite a lot of writing. I've had so much downtime, so much quiet, both right here in the Struts studio as well as upstairs in the apartment. And so I've been shocked by what I've been writing because it's become quite autobiographical and personal when initially I was hoping for the book to be quite generalized. So just my experience in more solitude has made the book very personal. So coming from a larger city like Hamilton, Ontario to Sackville, I've definitely had difficulty finding the ingredients that I otherwise would cook with. So I haven't actually been working on recipe development as much as I have been working on the narrative for the book. But I will tell you, when I first arrived, I met a really wonderful artist named Indu Varma, and she drove me all the way to Moncton to go to the Indian grocery store to get lentils and Indian spices and mangoes, of course, because it's mango season. And I was so grateful to her for that. So I have been able to cook dal and rice regularly while I've been here from those ingredients. And that is a recipe that I'm putting in the book. Yes, so I definitely had so many preconceived notions of what Sackville was. One was that I thought it was a very small white place, and I've been shocked by the number of racialized artists that I've made connections with in the city, and very grateful for everyone's generosity. So I have been very pleasantly surprised around the diversity in Sackville. I am still shocked every time someone offers to drive me somewhere or take me somewhere, which is just a generosity that is not typical in my experience in bigger cities, because people are quote unquote busy and don't have time. Um, but everyone here is so much more welcoming. So while in Sackville, my go-to meal has been based off of ingredients I have been getting from the farmer's market. Cooking just for myself, I'm able to splurge on some ingredients that I might not have otherwise buy when I'm at home also cooking with my partner. So I have been buying steaks from the butcher. Okay, so my favorite thing about being in Sackville was probably the proximity to nature. I mean, where I live in Hamilton, I don't have access to a green space. And the park near me is typically, filled with a lot of people doing a lot of different things. So one of my favorite parts of being in Sackville has been actually walking through Waterfowl Park. So I typically go on a walk there every day. And that has been, really grounding to be in nature and to, see things like muskrats swimming and like ducks with their babies and Canada geese with their goslings. And then I am also really lucky that some pals that I met here in Sackville took me to Hopewell Rocks, which was just gorgeous to see the ocean and the flower pot rock formations. In terms of sharing a little bit more about my practice, what I will say is that if folks are interested in the book Depression Cooking, if you have an interest in some of that writing, I would encourage you to access the free PDF of the zine, which is copy left, which you can distribute as your heart desires to all your friends and family. If you follow me on Instagram, it's linked in the link in my bio.